Hi everyone, this is Caroline, and today is the OMnium Radio webcast, first webcast of 2013. I hope everybody is doing fantastic and beginning a great new year. I'm going to make this a more, as I said earlier, more of a conversation as much as possible. Of course, we're on the web. There are a lot of people from all over the world joining today. I'm sure you know this is a very important topic, and so you can either type in your question or simply raise your hand. I will open the line for you and you can speak your question out loud. So the topic is the physical transition. Somebody's asked, why am I choosing this topic now? Because, I keep receiving emails about this for quite some time, and I still see a lot of fear and a lot of confusion about this topic. So I decided once and for all to really let's talk about it in detail until everybody has a clear idea about how it works and what's going on with this topic. And also, for those who know how this works, it's all experiential. So as I speak and as I explain something, I'm going to try to mix that with a guided exercise so that you get to experience the information yourself, as opposed to me simply telling you, which I will be doing anyway, but then you get to connect with this information your own way. And this brings me to how I am sharing this information with you and why. So for those who know me, have heard this many times before, but there are many new people, and also for future reference for those who will be listening to this tape later on. I personally have had a very clear understanding of the topic many years ago because of my personal experience in what people call near-death experience, NDE. And that happened through an accident of some sort, but it was a very clear and vivid experience, and that allowed me to experience what it's like to actually leave the body and see how the body can still exist while you are outside of it. So this is a very clear and vivid experience that I had. I didn't really share the details of it, and that's not really the importance of it. The importance is that the experience allowed me to see the actual process of leaving the physical body, the physical form, and continuing to exist. It's not about like tunnels and things like that. It's going to be much more specific than that. And also, I'm also speaking for those who are new to me and to this work. My ability to see subtle energy helps a lot. This means that if I can see a spirit form, then that helps a lot. So, then for the new folks, you will say, okay, well, how do you know you are seeing the right thing or interpreting the right thing? Well, again, I'm speaking today after many, many, many years of these experiences. And in the very beginning, I was a skeptic myself. I kept rejecting what I was seeing. I kept thinking, it's me, I'm imagining things, this can't be, what if I'm wrong? And, the whole human stuff. And so I was my first skeptic. And after I've, decided to get on with that self-judgment initial period, and simply to trust, I realized that all that I was seeing was accurate. And how did I know that? It's because I was receiving continuous validation, constant validation. If I see you at age 7 and you had a drowning experience and you never told me that, and then I tell you and you confirm that to me, that's validation. If I tell you that you you just had I don't know what, you just recently divorced or what have you, and then you confirm that to me, then that's validation. Well, if I receive validation every single day, many times a day, over many, many years, I must be doing something right, don't you think? So that is the reason why I stand here today telling you these things, because I didn't want to just be out there sharing things that I was seeing and not really explain the how, the methodology behind it, so that you can also do the same. So that's the reason why I teach the classes that I teach, to allow everyone the ability to allow everyone to experience for themselves what it's like to expand your awareness, your guidance system, and begin to see subtle energy as clearly as possible. So that is the background of this talk. And so the personal experiences combined with the ability to see subtle energy with clarity allows me to answer certain questions and to bring more clarity on this topic. So this topic, transitioning in a physical way, I talked about it a little bit last year with the whole ascension process, but we're talking now very specifically about leaving the body. And so it's a very important topic, and of course, we also have to look at it and talk about it in steps. That's why it's a series, because we can't cram everything in this 1 hour. And so I'm going to talk about how it works, how does the actual consciousness leave the body, and then what happens in this process, and where do we go, and then how do we communicate. So, but basically, the most important reason that we are having this conversation is to examine this topic within the context of life, within the context of what you are doing here. And I'm hoping that this will bring a lot of relief, a lot of freedom, because we only look at it from the one perspective, that you are here and then you're not. This is not to say that for the people who are connected with you physically, that it's not a painful experience or difficult experience. I'm simply saying that before you come in, you have already decided to leave. So remember that. And so we're going to examine the time of departure, of transitioning within the context of coming in. And that will also bring a whole new perspective and a lot of clarity and hopefully some relief. Okay, so let's see if I can answer a couple quick questions here. And see if we can talk a little bit. And of course, like I said, I'm going to mix this with some guided exercises as things are needed. So somebody's asking, can you give a healing session to someone who just passed away within 48 hours? And so the idea is that if you have left, the healing does not need to happen. And so I don't think it's necessary. It's your perception that you are still needing to give that healing. So let's say you decide to die at age 70. Can you change your departure time at the last moment? Yes. So that brings me also to the topic of how you organize your life as you come in. You come in deciding that you're going to live here for 70 years or whatever. But once you get here and as you approach 70, you can still change that if it is necessary, if it is required from an even higher perspective. So let's begin with that. Let's see, another quick question here. Can you help the departed to see clearly? I think you're asking, can you assist the people who are leaving? Yes, of course, but again, it's it brings the topic of how they are leaving, why they're leaving, and so on and so forth. But that's the idea. The more clarity you have, the more clarity you're going to bring to others. So let's begin from the beginning. Before we come in, we have an agreement with ourselves. We decide that we are here to fulfill a task, a mission. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be simply having a human experience. And so that is the reason why you organize it before coming in. You have a very good idea that in order for you to complete this mission, you're going to need 40 years or 30 years or 70 years or 100 years. And so you write it in your story before coming in that you are going to accomplish these things. And around that time, you will also have the ability to extend or to change slightly that departure time and date. Slightly, I said. Because you see, from a much higher perspective, from a much bigger perspective, you are a very large consciousness. Much, much, much larger than the one that fits in this physical body right now. And this very large consciousness is also part of another one that's even larger. So any decision that you make about that is going to affect that even larger consciousness. And that larger consciousness is affecting creation in general, you see? So if you can imagine like a massive bubble, that is creation. Within that is a little bit less massive bubble, which is your spirit family, your consciousness where you belong, and then a smaller bubble, which is you. So if the smaller bubble changes things around, it's going to affect everything else. And this is huge. And so, but in a certain way, this should feel really good. Because as the small bubble, which is you, decides to incarnate, you are bringing to the much bigger bubble something new, something different. And also, you are not kind of out there on your own, separated from creation. You are bringing creation with you and also adding to creation in general as you complete your mission. And so that's the reason why it's very important to understand that the timing of your transition and the way you transition is slightly different, but let's talk about the time. The timing of your transition is crucial for the much, much, much bigger picture. And so let's say you realize that you're going to need 2 or 3 incarnations to complete this one mission. So the first one, maybe you're going to come in and live 30 years. And then you're going to leave and come right back. You don't leave, you don't go very far in this case. And then finish, the second part or the third part. And then when you're done with all the parts that complete your mission, then you will take your consciousness completely, that bigger bubble, and you're going to go back to the biggest bubble, so to speak, and you would have completed that human mission. So having said that, when you look at it from the human perspective and look at the timing topic, the timing of it, and we go, oh my God, he was only 30 years old. Oh my God, she lost a kid who was 7 years old or whatever. We are not understanding that the timing is purposeful, was purposeful. There's no such a thing as an accident. Very, very rarely there are accidents. Even the accident is part of the story because it's doing something. Let's say a child is killed in an accident. That accident was, let's say, a drive-by shooting or something. That accident is going to trigger a massive amount of awareness and consciousness expansion in the community, in the country, internationally, what have you, because a small child was killed by a drive-by shooting. If it was an older lady, we wouldn't feel the same, right? So in this person's story, before coming in, this person said, I'm going to trigger a phenomenon simply by the fact of my death being so short, so soon, right? And that is the reason why it will be purposeful for me to exit the physical life at age 7, you see. Does that make sense? So understanding that the timing is purposeful on all levels. The story serves a human purpose, a consciousness purpose on the earth, and it serves a purpose of creation in general, because it goes back to feed the massive bubble, which is creation, that continues to expand. Does that make sense? Let's see here. There's a couple of questions on this topic. Okay. We often read about the bodies of highly evolved souls, masters, dissolving physically into light when they are departing, so that not a trace of their 3D body is left. Will that become possible to much greater mass of souls as spiritual evolution progresses? Yes, absolutely. Now, this has to do more of the way we exit as opposed to the timing. But of course, that is the ultimate way of leaving. Having said that, also the timing of the earth. Let's say there's a very evolved master right now, but they choose to shed their body and leave it behind. Sometimes it is part of their consciousness and it's purposeful, because that aspect of their consciousness is still needed to exist in a physical sense, even if their consciousness has left. So it's really case by case. But eventually, once humanity is going to evolve to a much, much higher level, and I'm talking about 200 and 225 years approximately, humanity will not need to leave anything behind. The typical human will be able to simply dissolve into the higher consciousness and simply move on to the next awareness without shedding the physical body. Okay, let's see who else. Again, I would love to hear your voices, guys. So if you have a mic, please raise your hand. What about suicide cases? Can you decide to incarnate on Earth, then decide to exit by committing suicide, and then decide to never come back to incarnate on Earth? Or once you committed suicide, you're obligated to come back and incarnate on Earth to complete your mission? Okay. So, we said that the timing is crucial, but also the timing is part of the story. So I would normally not write in my story that I would commit suicide, because it normally goes against the nature of creation to kill itself purposely. And so, but I will write in my story that I will be so lost and confused that I will allow separation and misguidance to take over me to such a degree that I may lose my way. And so that will be written in my story. Why would I write that? Because I probably did it in another incarnation, and I need to do it again to make sure I do not go overboard and go through with it this time around, to master the suicide, the self-destruction. And so that's the reason why I would write something like this in my story. I would not write the actual suicide, because that's not something you master. You master the despair. You master the experience of having been to be totally lost, totally confused, and totally separated. And so what happens is that once you do, what happens is that you do allow yourself to be totally lost and confused and separated. And you attract more and more of the same and more people like you, so that this allows you to attract even more attachments. We talked about that. And one day you actually succumb to the experience. Now, what happened of suicide? The problem with that, it's once you do that, you are obligated, not in a sense of someone else obligating you. You are obligated because you feel like you have not completed your human mission, and so you will have to maintain your human form for a while until you succeed at the self-destruction, meaning you master the suicide experience one more time. So that's the reason why, for folks who think they are leaving through suicide to alleviate their experience from the human condition, they are coming right back. Not only they are coming right back, but they are coming with the same problems, the exact same problem. And in fact, it's exactly where they left off. So if somebody kills themselves because they cannot deal with the financial burden and taking care of children or what have you, then they're going to come back and create that same experience exactly in the same way, well, plus or minus a few different people maybe, and drive themselves to that same point. Plus, they will have to master the tendency and the fear and the ability to self-destruct. So it's an added burden, and that's the reason why suicide never works. Okay, so Rose is asking, thank you for the subject. How to know when to stop healing someone? Maybe it is in their contract to die. Yes, and the reason why we're trying to shed as much light as possible on this subject is that for you also to assist those who are in the nursing home, in the about to pass, or they have a very advanced case, which I did also. I worked with some very advanced cases, and it was not for me to bring them back. It was the opposite. In fact, it was to help them see what happened, where they are in their story, and why they needed to exit at this time, and how to best allow them to go back to the big bubble, add to the big bubble, as opposed to exiting in a way that is shameful or confused or in complete despair. Because you see, when we don't have the information, when we are confused, for example, we have an advanced case of cancer or something, then you are sinking in shame, despair, confusion. You are not thinking, oh, it was part of my story. That's the last thing you're thinking about. And so is everybody around you, which is not helping. And so that's the reason why, if you understand that this is part of the story, and of course use your ability to heal as much as possible, then you can assist this person to focus on healing the human condition that is left as quickly as possible, and allowing them, if possible, to see the bigger picture, the bigger bubble, where they came from and what they are going back to. There's a lot that you can do that they can still do, even on your deathbed. There's a lot of healing, a lot of clearing, a lot of consciousness expansion. But, because people are usually physically not feeling that they can do anything because of whatever illness they may have, then this is where you come in, and you can do a lot of work on a lot of beautiful, beautiful consciousness lifting and assistance in those times. Okay, another question. Okay, did you have a question, Kim?
Hi. So it comes to to mind in timing of transition. There are massive events such as disasters like a tsunami or a big earthquake, or even like the recent Newtown massacre here where many children were killed as well as the shooter shot himself. So those, the timing of all those passings, those are all co-creations, is that correct?
Absolutely. These are co-creations. Again, these individuals know themselves, know each other, on some level before coming in. And so it's part of a story. And it looks crazy. It looks insane from our perspective. What is that? Like, children killing each other and it doesn't make any sense. But if you see the effect that this incident has, and if they were not children again, maybe we would have looked at it differently. So this is absolutely a co-creation, and the timing of it, including the mass exits in those storms or what have you. These are all stories. These are all stories because you see, the consciousness never ceases to exist. It's a temporary shape. It's a temporary form that has to be shed anyway. Because, do you really, if I ask you this question, do you really, really, really want to be in a physical body forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and not be able to change? How does that feel to you when I say that? I mean, I'd like to hear some of your comments when I ask this question. Because we say, I want to live as much as I can, as I want to grow as old as possible, and this and that. But if I asked you, okay, well, you have that opportunity, and you're going to keep this body eternally. How does that feel, and how does that sound? So I'd like to hear your comments, please. So John is saying, it feels limiting, like I'm trapped, okay? Elizabeth says, trapped. Christina says, would like to be able to ascend. Marion said, not in this body. Kim said, no, please. This has been fun, but hey. Right. Prison. Interesting. Everybody refers to the body as a prison or as being here as trapped. No, says Elena. Horrible, says Yael. I definitely don't want to stay in this body forever. Very contained, says Marty. Not forever. Boring, says Gordon. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It's a very interesting dichotomy because, we are so afraid of death, and we are so kind of looking at death as the worst thing that could ever happen, as a big tragedy. And then we say, okay, well, fine, then you stay then. You stay, but then you don't want to stay. So you see how interesting this is. It is only because we don't understand the subject. We don't understand how it works. We don't understand how it comes about and what happens next. If we understand, then it wouldn't be such a big deal, you see. So that's what we're trying to do here. Saya is saying, in your example, does it mean that we should not be angry by a drive-by shooter who shoots the 7-year-old? They play their part in the mission. No, of course, but that's the idea. So the drive-by shooter has also written a story, because his story is to have to live with the guilt of killing another human. That's a massive, massive burden. And so you see, it's a perfect story. The small child says, hey, I'm going to play the part of the victim, and I'm going to create a huge wave of consciousness, awareness around this subject. So will you play that part? Of course, that other person does not just write this part just because. That person writes the part because it serves them. The driver of that car has had the need to master the massive guilt of killing someone. And so maybe in the past life, in the past experience or in another human experience, he did do the same thing, but then he ran away. So this is an opportunity for him to do it again, but to this time around, maybe surrender, maybe ask forgiveness, maybe be part of the healing, you see. So if we just look at the tiny, tiny little story, it sounds horrific and it does not make sense. But if you look at the stories from the bigger perspective, it all makes perfect, perfect sense. All right. Marion's saying, my son 14 is a walk-in. What? I just heard this week from Hyacinta during a session. Okay. This happened when he was 3. So I lost my son then, but I still have a son as well. It's a little bit double now. This is my son now, and I love this son as well. Is there more information I need to know about this? Can you tell me your insight on it? How does this affect the consciousness bubble you spoke? Okay, this has to do with walk-ins and changing, switching, using the same body but switching another part of your consciousness coming in. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, maybe not today, but later on, because this has to do with the choices you make when you leave. Because, like I said earlier, you have the ability to leave the body. Like, for example, if you're in a coma or an accident or you have a near death or what have you, or even if you don't have any of those, you can still, you have to be really, really very advanced to do that. But you have the ability to within this massive bubble that you are, not the biggest bubble of creation, your bigger bubble, meaning your consciousness, let's say, your larger consciousness, has the ability to keep this current body for a time. And then let's say for 17 years or something, in the case of your son, 3 years, and then leave and then switch something around and come back and continue with the same body. This is simply a choice. It happens sometimes, but usually you don't do it this way. You finish with the same body, usually I said, with the same body, because the body also is part of the story, what it's doing, why it looks this way, how far it will go, what it does within that configuration. And then if you have to come back, you usually switch bodies. Okay. It feels that some of us are here and more confused on helping, as per our contract, the souls to leave the body. Yes, exactly. This is why I'm saying this. So, it's because you think you have the tendency to still think that if this person is dying, maybe you have to save them. Again, this is a misconception. It depends. Sometimes you do have to save them. Save them. Let's make sure we're understanding what saving means. It simply means that this person has gotten themselves so sick, but also it is part of their story and your story to help them reverse that illness, even when they're stage 4 cancer, and to be able to come back and continue a healthy life. That was their story. That was your story. But you cannot apply this story to everyone, not the next patient that you have that is stage 4 cancer. You also have to bring back. Maybe in the case of the next person, you are supposed to help them exit. So that's why there's no one size fits all. There's no one solution for everyone. It depends case by case. That is why you have to really, really know and understand that every single story is completely unique. And not because you have healed someone before that you are only here to heal the people, meaning to bring them back. So be very careful with that. Okay, Alaya is saying, I would want to stay here as much as possible so I can do and create as much as I can. I would feel sad about leaving. Okay, so that makes also a lot of sense, especially when you start to connect with a consciousness meaning the biggest bubble, and you start to understand what you are doing here and the importance of your presence here, then that becomes really, really interesting, because you see, wait a minute, I did all this and I came all the way here, and now I'm standing in this body and I have awakened to that level of awareness. So I might as well do as much as possible with this body. If I were to leave now, and I understand it's part of my contract, then it is part of my contract. But it's kind of doesn't make sense that. So the sadness that you're experiencing right now, or your perception, it is because you have awakened to your bigger bubble, you see, not because you are afraid to leave or because you are attached to the earth. You are now realizing that your human body is a vehicle for that much, much bigger bubble to bring in the consciousness of creation, of creator, of the universe, of source through you. And there's so much you can do with it. And that's the reason why. Okay? All right. Dina is saying, this life is hard. Often find myself wanting out as it is. I am terrified of what may happen if I don't fulfill my mission here. Is there a way we can know we are fulfilling our mission? All right. So this is again, it's a long question, a long answer, because it has to do with understanding your contract, your story. And if you understand your story, then you understand that you are fulfilling your mission. In a way, there's no way you cannot be fulfilling your mission. Because you see, the fact that you are here in this body, it means that you are already living the story. You are already manifesting the story. Now your mission has different levels. There is the huge energetic level. I don't want to get too much into that because I talked a lot about this. It has to do with your contract. And maybe you want to go to the library in the website and look at the contract, guys, as a reminder. For those who have not taken the courses, there's online sessions of the earthly contract. So see if you can go deeper with that class. But for the topic that we are dealing with today, so you write your contract, and part of this contract is to do several things. One is for you to simply appear as a human. Right there, you have all fulfilled your mission. Otherwise, I would be speaking to no one right now. And you are here, you are existing in a physical form that is part of your mission. It sounds crazy. Just to show up as a human means fulfilling your mission? Yes, absolutely. Because you see, you have to understand that your physical appearance is very, very, very unique. Meaning, Dina, your name is Dina. Dina has never existed as a human in this configuration ever. This means that the most massive bubble of creation has never experienced such a thing. So the fact that you have decided to show up in this particular form at this particular time is already fulfilling your mission from a creation point of view. So that's one level of your mission. Now, like Alaya was just saying, okay, well, now that you're here, now that you've fulfilled that part one of your mission, what else is there? It depends. That's your personal story. So go back to these classes online and see if you can find something very specific to you. But in addition to this, energetically, even if you're not aware of your mission, and let me just remind everyone here, we all think, or again, this is a misconception, that having a mission, is like you have to necessarily be some big spiritual leader, or you have to do some, healing work or whatever. This is, again, a huge misconception, because we think that only these things are helpful. I don't agree at all. You could be a painter, you could be a singer, you could be anything. You could be a housewife or a parent and not really have this, this big spiritual, what appears to be spiritual destiny or job, if you will. And you have to understand that still could be a mission to simply be a parent, to be a teacher of some sort, to be an artist is a mission. Because you see, you are expressing the way to be a parent, the way to be an artist, the way to be a human. That is the mission, you see. So make sure you are not projecting what the definition of mission should be and make it very big and very glamorous or very important sounding, okay? So I hope this helps for now. All right. Next question, please raise your hands and use the mics. Let's see here. Lori, if you have let's see, do you have a mic here? Do you have a mic, Lori? I guess not. So I will read your question then. I know a man who is elderly. He says that he never wants to die. I think it is because he fears punishment after death. How could I help him to feel more comfortable about this transition when the time comes? Okay, so again, that's why the more you understand this topic, the more you're going to be helping a lot of people. We're just starting. This is oh, okay. So Marion's saying, okay. So we're just starting this this series, like I said, because there's so much to cover. There's so much information. So just hang in there, and in the next few sessions, we are going to talk more about how you could be helping different people. But you are asking about helping him to transition when the time comes. You also want to say, there's an inner mechanism that also happens as you get close. If you are the one transitioning, like this older person that you're talking about, the transformation is happening within him. And so the fear is going to trigger some crises or some questions or some things that will allow him to open up on some level and ask for help. And so when he is at that level, at that place, then you can he will be more open to the conversation, and then you can begin to explain. But then again, going back to how we're going to help people, first of all, help yourself by understanding more and more, and that's what we're doing here. We're going to continue to do, but also helping others. We also have to be very, very clear to not make it an intellectual thing. So for example, now I am explaining to you a lot of things, and so certain things make sense, certain things maybe not quite yet, but there's something else that is also happening. It's the experiential part and the energetic part. So make sure that when you want to help people with this whole topic, whether they're transitioning or they're getting close or they know somebody else who is experiencing this or that, you have to still, we're going to get to that maybe in future sessions, you have to, even though you can be explaining certain things like I'm explaining to you, but the experiential and the energetic is what's going to heal. This means that the understanding is going to allow to create a framework, but then the work that you are going to do has to be more energetic, the transferring of the information of what is coming and why there's a timing issue, for example. All this, to me, I think should happen experientially and energetically. And like I said, I'm going to teach you some of these techniques through the series, so that somebody that is very close to their death, it's, of course, there's lots of fear, there's lots of confusion going on. And so here you are explaining, it's because it's the story and it's part of your story and it's the timing. Even if it's logical, but you're not the one that's exiting and you're not the one experiencing the fear. So just the logical explanation is not enough. So that's why first we are creating the framework with the explanation, but then the energetic exchange is going to happen experientially. And we're going to do a lot of that in this series. Okay. So Yal is saying, how are we able to see this bigger picture you talk about? All right, so this bigger picture, like I said, that's why for those who have been taking the classes, the online sessions and things like that, all of these you will do through experiences, experiential. So go back to the library and there's a huge amount of information in terms of prenatal contract, spirit family, type of being that you are. All of these topics, all of these exercises allow you to understand the bigger picture. So those who have taken Mastering the Human Mind class, those who haven't, look into those topics, and you will see, ask to feel, be guided to what class you need, and gradually you will begin to see the bigger picture. That's why I have the books. That's why there's just so much, there's so much we can do to understand the bigger picture. But again, to bring it back to the previous question, and also to tie it in all together, it still has to be experiential. So you're going to read about the prenatal contract, but then you're going to experience your prenatal contract. And so the more you do this, the more you will get the bigger picture, that it becomes a no big deal. Not the death that is not a big deal, but a no big deal to go back and forth. And that's where I am. That's where I would want you to be. When you are living as a human and you are facing something that's very difficult, that's very confusing, that just shows up in your face. So you have to be able, you should be able to simply switch to the bigger picture. Just like that. Because as soon as you switch to the bigger picture, then you see it from that perspective, and it just simply makes sense. And you start to, you make the right choices, you make the right decisions, you move forward in a different way, more elegantly, more gracefully, more in beauty, in compassion. It's a completely different perspective. So it's normal to have these things show up in your life, these fears, these crises, all of these things. But all of this work that we've been doing the last few years, and the new folks who are just joining, it's such a little bit of, an exercise here, an exercise there, but continue to do these exercises, and eventually you will be able to switch. In few seconds, you just switch and you see the other side. Okay, so here we go. Another question: why was this knowledge of pre-birth kept from us? Is this because we are in hell? Okay. I don't think we're in hell. Well, it's another long story. But it doesn't really matter, because this topic of prenatal is here now, and I'm telling you about it now. And like I said, we have experienced this. In fact, I'm going to finish this conversation today with just that as a quick reminder how to to tap into our prenatal contract. But I highly recommend, because I see your names, highly recommend to go back and do these exercises in more depth in the library, prenatal contract, and see what comes up for you. And that is how you're going to get used to tapping into this information like it's no big deal. All right. Another question. I know you have a mic, so I'm going to open your mic so I can take a break from the reading. Go ahead, Kim.
Hi, Caroline. I'm not sure this is appropriate for this introductory class, but here goes. Let's say you have a bunch of other aspects of you in bodies on the planet at the same time. And let's say for some reason that you decided you wanted to assemble all those aspects into one body. I'm doing this because of the timing topic that we're talking about. So let's say you wanted to pull them all together and have all the aspects be in one physical body. Does that mean the other bodies would die?
Yeah, again, it depends on how you wrote your story. So if you wrote your story and you said, okay, in this particular time from the year, I don't know, 1912 to the year 2050, whatever, I'm going to have 5 bodies at the same time doing different things and this and that. That's the way you wrote your story. It doesn't mean that everybody writes their story this way, but this is a possible story. So if you are, let's say you as Kim, you are one of the 5 at this particular time, and you become aware of the other 4, you have to understand that you already wrote your story as to how each of the other of the 5 is going to exit. So it's possible that, you think from your perspective that all of them have to exit at exactly at the same time, but maybe, it's spread over a year or something. But yes, indeed, if that is part of the story, then whether it's over a year or on the same day, it doesn't really matter. Depending on who wrote your story, the 5 aspects of yourself are going to follow the story. All right, makes sense? Okay. So, hey, Marius, I'm not sure your name. Okay. In Ireland, dear Caroline, tell me please how I'm not sure, DNA can be in a state of activation to the transformation. For me, it's been over 3 years. I'm not sure. I think I'm seeing what your question is. So what happens is that you are still kind of opening up to the bigger picture, Marius. And so what you're talking about is you are sensing that your DNA is being activated, but it's not so much. There's this whole DNA activation on the web, and different people talk about it. It's not so much that it's a DNA activation. It's more of an internal transformation that is happening within you, and you're still in the midst of it. You're not totally finished with that part. And so, in fact, what's going to assist you is to continue doing more and more of this work, because that's going to speed up your full awakening. So you are doing a good job, but I feel like you're a little bit stalled. It's almost like things have happened and now you're kind of stalled. So you need to go to the next level. So just continue doing these exercises and these guided meditations, and that will speed things up for you. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Kinga saying about suicide again. Does euthanasia in case of a terminally sick person have the same consequences as suicide? Again, so it's a story. So if I said I'm going to write my part, that I'm going to be the doctor, that I can, assist people, assist in the transitioning of the patients, and then I'm going to create a big controversy and stuff like that, then that is my story. And so it's not a suicide in this case. It's the person. One person is playing the part of the terminally ill, bringing up all these controversial topics and social issues, and another person playing the part of being the guy who ends up doing that. So it's always a co-creation. There are no accidents. Very, very, very few rare things that are not created. And that's what's so crazy, because from one perspective, it looks so out there and like not making sense because it sounds so painful. But again, now that I've been explaining this, you understand the purpose of it. It's a huge purpose. You would say, what about the guy who decided to be born and be in Africa and be starving to death and appear on television where we see his bones as a little child with all the flies on his face? I mean, that doesn't make any sense that you would write such a story. Well, let me tell you, this is a huge, huge, huge. When you see these images, isn't that when people actually do something? I mean, humanity has gotten to such a bad place of greed and ignorance and selfishness, that unless you show these images and you bring that to the global awareness, nobody is going to change. Nobody is going to lay a hand on, or help or assist or give anything of themselves. So that is the story. And unfortunately, we are still at that stage that we have to still trigger these massive awakening by appearing as a child, starving child, or what have you. Okay. What aspect of our current awareness, sense of self and intellect do we keep after we transition out of the physical body? Okay, so I have not talked about the actual transition. We've been talking about timing. So we're almost at the end of the hour here. Wow, time flies. Let's see if I can see the next couple questions and wrap this up a little bit to bring as much light. Okay, Lawrence is asking, why don't we all live until 300 years old, and then we will have plenty of time to complete our mission and even several missions? Because that is your perception, that it takes 300 years to complete the mission. So in your case, for example, it may require 300 years continuously, and that will probably what you will create, or possibly, I'm not sure. You will have to tell us your story. But for somebody else, it's possible that because of their previous work, their previous incarnation, it will require of them to come and go and come and go, and then to finish in 300 years. Somebody else with a different type of consciousness is able of sustaining one same body for 300 years. So if that is your consciousness, then that's what you will do. And if it's somebody else's consciousness, then they'll come and exit 3 or 4 times. All right? Here we go. What were the circumstances of your NE, Caroline, and how did you experience it? Okay, so what about euthanasia? It's for animals. It's starting to cover all sorts of topics here. Let's see. And we're talking about abortion, and we're talking, wow, this is such a huge, huge, huge topic. So this is what I'm going to do, because it is the end of the hour, and I think this is amazing and very, very important. So what I'll do is I'm going to finish this conversation by explaining very, very briefly how the spirit, what we call spirit or the consciousness, leaves the body. And then we're going to do a little bit of an experience, a little experiential exercise, and then leave it at that and allow the rest to continue on its own. And then we'll connect next time with the more talking about the subject. So what happened that is also in my case, so whoever's asking about my case. So what happened is that when, for those who have been studying with me, understand how the energy field is actually formed. But for the new folks, as a quick reminder or explanation, what happens is you have your physical body, but you also have 3 other energy fields. So it's almost like you have the physical body with its energy field, and then you have 3 other energy fields. So all of these energy fields, it's like one bubble inside a bubble inside another bubble. So 4 bubbles, okay? We keep talking about bubbles today. But all of these energy fields, all of these bubbles around you are held together. They're kind of like locked in your physical body, behind your heart at the thymus gland. This means that if you imagine that you have these 4 energy fields, and they're all connected at this one point. And in fact, that's why when your heart stops, you die, but not when your brain stops. Isn't that interesting? So your heart stops. So these energy fields are connected at that place behind the heart. And when the heart stops and you are technically dead, it releases that connection. And imagine that the physical body can continue to exist, but from that is now detached the other energy fields. The other energy fields are made of one energy field is your consciousness, one energy field is your spirit energy, the other energy field is your physical energy. I do a whole course on that. This is a lot of information. You have to go back and listen and look into the mastering the human mind, how all of this works together. But for the sake of this conversation, these three energy fields unlock, detach. And when that happens, then you actually can exit the physical body because you are released from the physical body, and and you can continue to exist. The physical energy part of that sphere that was released allows you to still have a shape, except that it's a spirit shape. That's why we call ghost or whatever. So even you leave the body, you still have a form, but it's not the one that, that people can see, obviously. So you have a form that your consciousness and your spirit energy and your is all held in a form, but it's detached from your body. So you exit the physical body in that way through the heart. And in order for you to come back, so for those who had a near-death experience, were clinically dead and came back, have to go back and connect, lock back in behind the heart at the thymus gland in order for them to reoccupy that same body. So in the case of a walk-in, they would change the configuration of the physical. That's a whole time. I'm actually not going to get into that because there's a lot of information about how you come back, how you can switch something and come back in the same body. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm going to maybe just lead a quick guided exercise to simply allow you to understand a little bit more on a deeper cellular level how this process happens. Nothing will happen to you, don't worry. You're not going anywhere. But just what we are doing is understanding this phenomenon on a deep cellular level, on a consciousness level, as opposed to what people tell us, as opposed to what's out there, as opposed to what's common knowledge. We need to let go of that and to truly, as an intelligent species, as an intelligent consciousness, connect with the experience, connect with the information to understand on a deep, deep cellular level what it entails and how creation works. Because you see, it's not about transitioning, it's not about dying and living, it's all about creation. It's all part, as I started to say, the biggest massive bubble, which is the consciousness of creation. You are part of creation. It cannot cease to exist. It simply transforms, it simply transitions from this tiny state to this other tiny state to this other state. It's actually very, very subtle, and it's actually very, very beautiful. So let's do a little exercise, and we'll see. Let's intend that you will receive exactly what you are needing at this time to enhance your understanding, to expand your consciousness regarding this topic of entering the human form, transitioning from this human form to another, and to put it always in a perspective of the bigger picture. All right, so here we go, just a couple of minutes here. Sit up straight with your feet flat on the floor, close your eyes. And let's take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Quiet your mind. Let go of the talk, of the mind chatter. Let go. Focus on your heart. And breathe in through the nose again. Deep breath. Exhale through the mouth. Continue to let go of the tension, the mind chatter. Simply relax. Go to your heart and say, I ask and intend to create a sacred space. Let go of the confusion, the mind chatter, to be in the moment. Perfect quiet, perfect silence. Breathe in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Relax. Our intent today is to feel, see, sense, and understand on a deep cellular level how our consciousness is connected to our physical body. How we are one with creation. How we are always part of the bigger picture, always part of divine creation. Breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Focus on your heart. Expand 360 degrees and imagine that you are sitting in a sphere of light that is your sacred space. Breathe in through the nose. As you exhale through the mouth, in your heart center again, ask to feel, see, sense the energy field that is holding your physical cells and your physical body only. Breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth, expand 360 degrees, just enough to merge with the physical energy field that holds your physical body. And breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and now expand a little bit more and ask to feel, see, sense, and experience the other 3 energy fields that is you. That is you in spirit form. And now bring your focus back to the thymus gland behind your heart and ask to feel, see, sense the connection between the two. This connection is like a portal, is like a 0 point, like a vortex, a torus-like vortex that allows you to come in and exit. The physical form. Ask to be in command of this connection. Say, I ask and intend to understand this connection, how my consciousness is being held with my body on a deep cellular level. I ask and intend to command this connection, to master this connection, be in charge of my consciousness and physical body, and how they are being held together perfectly according to the laws of creation. Breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Go back to your heart and open your eyes. I will let you stay I will let you stay in this energy. But if you have done this exercise properly, then you would have felt that there is a portal that is perfectly coherent with the universal structure, that makes you coherent with the universe, with the configuration of the planet and beyond, so that you can hold the human form at will and upon command. This is not something that happens to you, that is over your will, that makes you a victim. You are in charge of this connection. And so with this information and this awareness, I will leave you this time. I hope you enjoyed this. You are welcome to send me your comments and emails. I will do my best to respond, and if not, I will respond to you in the next session. And so until then, I send you all my love, and I hope to connect with you next time. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.